What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from MTG headquarters, and today is pre-release Friday. And depending on where you are in the world, you may already be at your pre-release, but you will have missed my amazing pre-release primer, which generally stays the same each pre-release, but you guys always enjoy it, respond favorably, and in between pre-releases, there's always thousands of new subscribers who are curious for a little help for the upcoming pre-release. So let's start before the event. You've got lots of things to think about. You want to dedicate a little bit of time to spoilers in the new set, refreshing what cards to look for in Shadows over Innistrad. Look at the mythics, look at the rares, but spend more time on the commons and uncommons, I think. A lot of times mythics and rares are easy auto-includes in decks. It's those all-star commons, like going back to things like Grey Merchant. Things like, there are commons that, or even in Origins, there was the Vigilant 4/6 that taps something down every turn, Sentinel. You know, there's so many uncommons and commons that are really powerful that you need to be aware of. Understand the archetypes that are available to you as a sealed pool. While some decks may just play a hodgepodge of colors and not really follow any one theme, I think the best decks are the ones that take a little discipline and try to squeeze out that extra value from the synergies of using the new mechanics. In my previous videos, I talk about how I believe Madness is probably the strongest of the mechanics, but also you have to remember that you may have a bunch of great spells that have Madness, but if you don't have a sack outlet, creatures that let you discard cards, not sack outlet, but discard outlet, you can't really get that value. So you have to be aware of everything that is required to get all the value that you might want. Then read through and understand. I already talked about that. So try to get a good night's sleep, which obviously I did not get. Try not to eat junk food. I know I always say this, and then in my vlog videos, I end up eating at McDonald's or something like that. But in general, eating a good meal before is always helpful. You don't want to play when you're hungry. You don't want to overeat and be tired if you're concerned about playing well. If you're just going to have fun, then it doesn't even matter. Bring everything that you need. Playmat, sleeves, dice, cell phone charger, trade stuff if you want. I generally wouldn't recommend bringing trade stuff because pre-releases are kind of chaotic, but there is a lot of downtime in between rounds. You won't need a deck box necessarily, but also maybe a healthy snack and something to drink. If your local shop sells these things, like snacks and healthy snacks or treats or whatever, you know, buy from them. But if all they have are like potato chips, I think it's okay to bring something like an apple or a banana or even a sandwich. I mean, you're there. Sometimes my pre-release goes on 6-7 hours. That is like mealtime. You know, it's not like eat a Snickers and power through. I want like a sandwich. So depending on how long your pre-release is, keep that in mind. Remember, if you're going to a midnight release, you might not be getting out till 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and that's a long time to go without eating. Once you get to the event, I mentioned earlier about bringing your lands. I want to tell you that one of the best things I've ever done is started bringing pre-sleeve lands. And then obviously the exact same sleeves to sleeve your deck. It saves so much time in congregating. Usually what happens is deck building is really rushed at pre-release, and you have to really push to get through all your cards, and then you end up in a huge line trying to get lands, basic lands for your deck. Then you have to sleeve those lands. You could give yourself 5 extra minutes of deck building if you bring your lands pre-sleeved. This is a competitive advantage over your opponents. The more time you have to spend on your deck building, the better you would think the deck's going to be. Now, sometimes if you're like me, you just stare at a pile of cards for 20 minutes and you can't make it any better, you can't make it any worse. Okay, but in general, pre-sleeving, pro tip. So what you get is 6 Shadows over Innistrad boosters, a spin down, card divider, deck box. They're getting there on the deck boxes. They're looking cooler and cooler. And then you get a randomized date stamped promo. What we're seeing out of the most recent sets once they started doing this is those promos are the ones that maintain a lot of value. So don't be in a huge rush to trade that away. Here's a sample curve I stole from the internet a long time ago, and I've used it over and over again in my pre-release primer videos. But, obviously 1 mana, you really don't want to play any 1 mana creatures here. Just follow the curve. It tells you everything that you want to stay in general, right? Maybe you build a really low curve and you have 14 2-drops and you want to just get in there and get there. That's fine. If you're playing heavy, that's fine. This is just a guide. But for newer players, they often ask, how many creatures do I need to play? How many spells do I need to play? Again, this is just a guide, okay? And then the 18 lands thing was definitely irrelevant in the Battle and Oath of the Gatewatch block because you're playing so many big drops and you really want to hit your 5 drops. But Shadow seems a little lower curve, so I feel like if your curve mostly tops out at 5, you could probably sneak in with 17 lands and have a little bit more aggressive of a deck. So creature heavy, play evasion, and removal. Okay, so combat tricks are nice, and I think every good deck has a couple of really good ones, but in my experience, pre-releases often end in board stalls. So what I generally do is I might err on the side of a weaker creature that's either unblockable or flying, because there's going to be a point in the game where you just have to push damage through. And it's important that you can win the game when things stall out. Flyers are a traditional way to do it. Combat tricks are another, and removal is a third. So keep that in mind. Maybe you have 3 or 4 of these kind of vanilla 5/5s or 5/4s, but you have a couple of 2/2 flyers or a 3/2 flyer, something like that. You probably want to consider playing at least 1 or 2 of those flyers because you have to get damage through in the late game. Setting yourself up for victory, okay? We're getting to the real meat and potatoes here. Anytime you play in a pre-release event, I'm talking about expeditions here. Ha! There are no expeditions in this set. But if you've gone to a lot of sealed events like I have, you know that while you can play really well, it's sealed. And sealed pools heavily favor opening up just the best pool. Like, your chances of victory if you open 2 planeswalkers is just exceedingly much higher regardless of your skill. If you're terrible at playing the game, okay, fine. But even a terrible player will probably beat a weak deck if they have some crazy god pool, okay? This is just a reality of sealed. Don't go work in the salt mines over your buddy who opened some crazy good pool. Be happy for him or her. And remember that pre-release is about having fun. And if wherever you play isn't about that, then maybe consider playing somewhere that is about fun. I've played in both highly competitive pre-releases as well as just more casual ones, and I always enjoy the casual ones much more. It takes many hours, that I talked about earlier, so plan accordingly. Make an effort to meet new people. Introduce yourself to your opponents, ask them how their day is going, be friendly. Pre-releases bring out a lot of new players, a lot of returning players, and a lot of players that don't normally play at your local game store. So having a positive experience for someone who it might be their first or second time in an actual game store will increase the likelihood they might come back to draft with you. And as a drafter, I always want more people to draft. As someone who plays Constructed, I'm sure you guys always want more people to play Constructed with. So this is the time to make those connections. Remember, too, sealed is really about fatties and board stalls. Evasion and late game is super important. I mentioned that in the last slide. I'm telling you again. Don't smell, okay? Every time I have to tell people this, I feel ashamed I have to do it, but it's true. Fellas, take a shower, please. If you stink from work, take time, go take a shower, change your clothes. Pre-releases are packed. You're nut to butt in the whole building. Everybody's packed in. And the smell can be real, and just don't be that guy, okay? Also remember, judges are there to help. Don't be afraid to call one. There's lots of new players, lots of new mechanics, lots of new cards, and it's okay to ask for how things interact. Now, before I get to my last slide, which is basically where I'm going to tell you the number one way to win your Shadows over Innistrad pre-release, I want to just recap, okay? So playing little bigger creatures in sealed, being a little more greedy in sealed is generally okay. These are just quick hits of things that I've learned. Unconditional removal is really powerful. Card draw is really powerful, although I wouldn't force Investigate in this set. I just don't think it's that good. I could be wrong. I'm not a pro player. But I think I would just rather play a card that says draw cards. If you don't have that option, okay, maybe. And there's going to be a lot of really powerful cards in people's pools. You're going to play somebody who has 3 mythics in their deck. You're going to play somebody who has no mythics in their deck. There's just that much variance when you talk about playing sealed. So be ready for that. Try to keep your deck consistent and don't get too greedy or flashy. But in general, the pre-release decks that win, I think, err on the side of power level. So if you have a really powerful creature and you have a reasonable way to play it, you might want to consider splashing for it. Maybe you don't get to cast it, maybe you do, but I think having a big flyer or something that's like, you know, maybe not a double blue splash, but a single color splash, if it's really that powerful, like Planeswalkers, I would almost always splash one unless it's in 2 colors I'm definitely not in. Even then I might do it. Depends on if there's appropriate fixing. So if you just prepare, try to build a really powerful deck, do your research, you're going to do fine. And you know what? You might open a junk pool, but that's okay because pre-release is about having fun. And that leads me to the secret to winning this pre-release is just to have fun. Ah! I'm sure you love that. It's supposed to be fun. I've been playing a long time and I go and I want to win packs. But really, what I take away from it is the stories, the new friends I meet, the people from past lives that I see that also still play the game, things like that. That's what pre-release is about. And if you take it too seriously, then you're just not going to have fun. Save that attitude for competitive events, for GPs, whatever. But pre-release is about having fun. And remember that when you're playing somebody who's returning to the game or they're younger or whatever, just be cool. You know, don't be a dick. And then everybody wins pre-release. So everyone, please have fun tonight. Drive safely on your way there and on your way home. I know a lot of you are going to be tired. Bring some caffeine. Have someone pick you up. Remember to eat some good food. Have lots of fun. We'll see you out there tonight. Use all different kinds of content. So if you haven't yet, click on my face to subscribe. If you want to watch more videos, I've got some sweet playlists, including this one, where I open up every fat pack ever created. I've also got this one over here where I open just about anything vintage and old and expensive for your enjoyment. And all this is made possible by the awesome backers at our Patreon, which is linked in the description of every video. Hop on over there, check it out, see if it's something you might want to consider. If not, sit back, enjoy, and I'll still love you.